Okay, so we looked at, in our last lesson, we looked at factoring just regular trinomials where the coefficient of the quadratic term was just 1, okay? And we used X box, and we looked at the X box, and we determined what two numbers we could multiply to get the middle coefficient, or to get the last coefficient, and what we could add. Okay, and we had to look at the signs to figure out whether we were dealing with two positives, two negatives, or one positive and one negative. So now we're going to take that a step forward, and we're going to factor patterns where the coefficient of the quadratic term is not 1, it's something else. Okay, so let's look at this. So we know that by using FOIL, if I have 2x plus 9 times x minus 1, if I use FOIL, I'm going to end up with 2x squared plus 7x minus 9. Okay, so to factor this, because now I have something other than 1 here, we're going to use this process called slide divide bottoms up. Okay, so we know how to factor this when this number here is a 1. So what we want to do is we want to kind of manipulate this a little bit so that we have a 1 here. We can use our X box, and then we have to kind of undo what we did. All right, so here's how this works. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to slide the integral coefficient and multiply it by the constant. So what that means is, first of all, make sure you've got this in descending order. Okay, so here's my x, my x squared, my x, and then my constant. I'm going to take this 2, and I'm going to slide it over here, and I'm going to multiply that by this 9. So I'm going to end up with x squared plus 7x minus 18. Okay, and we know how to factor this using our X box. So I want to add two numbers and get 7, and I want to multiply two numbers and get negative 18. Okay, because this is negative, it tells me one of these is positive and one of these is negative. All right, so I start looking at factors of 18 whose difference is 7. And I know right away that 2 and 9, their difference is 7. Since 7 is positive, my 9 is going to be positive, my 2 is negative. Let's double check. 9 plus negative 2 is 7, and 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. So this is going to give me x plus 9 and x minus 2. Okay, because this isn't what we started with, we have to undo this. So what we did was we had multiplied by 2. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to divide by 2. So I have x plus 9, x minus 2, and I'm going to divide both of these numbers by 2. Since it was this last number that I multiplied by 2, and the way I get my last number is by multiplying these last terms, I'm going to divide both of them by 2. So what I end up with is x plus 9 halves times x minus 1. So it says divide and reduce fractions. So I've divided, I've reduced the fractions. Okay, this I can't reduce any further. We do not change it to a mixed number. Here's what happens. The next one says bottoms up. If any fractions remain, and there we've got one, multiply the denominators by the variable. So bottoms up means basically I'm going to take, write it out here again. I'm going to take this, I'm going to multiply it up here. So that's going to give me 2x plus 9. The bottom comes up and it's multiplied by the variable. And there I've got 2x plus 9 times x minus 1, which is what I started with. And you can't see any of that, can you? Sorry. All right, let's go back, and since I didn't show it to you. Here we did the x box. We did the divide. We took our constants and we divided by the number that we had multiplied originally. Okay, the reason we divide both of these by 2 is because this last number I get by multiplying these two together. So I have to divide them both by 2. I simplify my fractions. Here I still have a fraction, okay, but it's in simplest form. I then go to bottoms up. So this bottom denominator gets moved up and is multiplied by the variable up front. So I ended up with 2x plus 9 times x minus 1, which is what I started with. Okay, so that shows you how it works. All right, so let me look at this. All right, so we're going to do example 1 now. So here is my trinomial, and I'm going to use the slide divide bottoms up. So first thing I do, make sure it's in order, x squared x constant, slide, and multiply. So I have x squared plus 7x plus 6. Okay, this I'm going to use my X box. I'm going to add two numbers to get 7. I'm going to multiply two numbers to get 6. They're both going to be positive, and factors of 6 are 2 and 3. Well, they don't add up to 7. 1 and 6. Don't forget 1 and the number. 1 plus 6 is going to give me 7. So let's check. 1 plus 6 is 7. 1 times 6 is 6. So I end up with, and I'm going to write it over here, I end up with x plus 1 and x plus 6. Okay, now I have to do the divide. Since I multiplied by 3, I have to divide by 3. So this is going to give me x plus 1/3 times x. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So that's, or yeah, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So x plus 2. Because I have this fraction still, I have to do bottoms up. I end up with 3x plus 1 times x plus 2. And I'm going to write that over here. 3x plus 1, x plus 2. And if I do a quick check, 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times 2 is 6x. Plus 1x is 7x. And that's going to give me 2, which is what I started with. Okay, so this is my answer. Right? So if you just remember the words slide, divide, bottoms up, that tells you the steps. All right. Again, I make sure this is in order. Now this time I have two different variables. I have an m and an n. The m is in descending order. The n is in ascending, so it's in the right order. I have a perfect square and a perfect square. Let's see if we can get a perfect square trinomial, which I can tell you right away we won't, because that middle term has been multiplied by 2, and so it should be even, and this is not even. So it's not going to be a perfect square trinomial. Look to see if there's a greatest common factor, because that's going to make life easier. There isn't one. So we're going to do slide, divide, bottoms up. So I start by doing the slide. It gives me m squared minus 25 mn minus 6 times 9 is 54 n squared. Now, for my answer, I wish these were a little bit bigger. Your answer is going to have an n here, so something n, and then something m. So I'm going to put it like that, okay? Just so that we don't forget those variables. So I'm looking for two numbers that when I add them, I get negative 25, and when I multiply them, I get negative 54. Now, because I'm multiplying and getting a negative, that tells me one of them is negative and one of them is positive. So I'm looking for the difference. Two numbers that will multiply to give me this, whose difference is 25. So let's see. Let's start with 1 and 54. That isn't going to work. 2 times 27. Yes, 27 and 2, their difference is 25. Since 25 is negative, 27 is going to be negative, and this will be positive here. Double check. The number one mistake people make is getting their signs wrong. Negative 27 and positive 2 gives me negative 25. Negative 27 times 2 gives me negative 54. So here's what I've got. I've got m minus 27n, don't forget your n, and m plus 2n. All right, so that was the slide. Now I have to do the divide. So I'm dividing both of these by 9. And so far in our examples, one of the fractions has turned into a whole number. Sometimes both of them will not turn into whole numbers. Okay, sometimes both of them will, but sometimes both of them won't. All right, so this becomes m minus 3n. And this one is simplified as far as it's going to go. So I'm going to do bottoms up. So this will be 9m plus 2n. So give myself a little bit of space here. So I'm going to do m minus 3n. And again, the order doesn't matter. 9m plus 2n. So let's double check. M times 9m is 9m squared. M times 2n is 2mn. Negative 3n times 9m is negative 27mn. And negative 3n times 2n is negative 6n squared. If I combine these two, my like terms, I get negative 25mn minus 6n squared, which is what I started with, so it's correct. All right, so good example 3. Again, this is in order. Okay, my variables are in descending order. So there's no greatest common factor. Usually if there's a number here, I always check to see if there's a greatest common factor, just see if I can factor it out and get rid of it. There's not, so we're going to do our slide. X squared plus 29x plus 28. So I'm going to add to get 29. I'm going to multiply to get 28. This one, when they're off by 1 like this, it's going to be 1 in that number. So we're going to do a plus 1 plus 28. If I add them, I get plus 29. If I multiply, I get plus 28. So I have x plus 1 and x plus 28. So that was the slide. Now I divide by 7. And this is going to be x plus 4. This one is simplified, so I'm going to slide that up. And that's my bottoms up. So this is what I have. Double check, 7x times x is 7x squared. 28x plus 1x is 29x, and 1 times 4 is 4. So I have 7x plus 1 and x plus 4. So the key is really just double checking. Double checking here. When you get your answer, double check that too. All right, so let's look at try this. Factor. All right, it's in descending order. There's no greatest common factor, so I'm going to do a slide. M squared plus 11mn plus 18n squared. Do my x box that has to add up to 11, has to multiply to give me 18. That tells me these are going to both be positive. Factors of 18, I have 2 and 9, which will add up to 11. That was easy. So then I have, don't forget your n's here. So I have m plus 2n and m plus 9n. Okay. Some people stop here, and you can't. I have to now do my bottoms up, so I'm divided by 3. This won't simplify, so this 3 has to come up front. 3m plus 2n. This one will simplify, m plus 3n. Double check. 3m times m is 3m squared. This will give me 9mn plus 2mn is 11mn. And 2n times 3n is 6n squared. So that is my answer. Okay, so the last lesson, or the last problem for the try this. We want to factor this. I have 5x squared minus 17x plus 6. I'm going to use slide divide bottoms up. So I have x squared minus 17x plus 30, because 5 times 6 is 30. I'm then going to use x box. I want to add 2 numbers to get negative 17 and multiply those same 2 numbers to get 30. Since 30 is positive, I know that these 2 numbers are going to be negative. So my factors of 30, I have 5 and 6, which doesn't add up to 17. I have 3 and 10, which doesn't. 2 and 15. Let's try 2 and 15. Let's double check. Negative 2 plus negative 15 is negative 17. Negative 2 times negative 15 is positive 30. So those are my 2 factors. So I have x minus 2 and x minus 15. Okay. I need to do my divide, so I have to divide them both by 5. And this is not going to simplify, so I can go ahead and do my bottoms up. This would be 5x minus 2. And this one will divide. 15 divided by 5 is 3, so x minus 3. If I want to check that, 5x times x is 5x squared. I have negative 15 and negative 2 gives me negative 17x. And negative 2 times negative 3 gives me positive 6.